Hi, welcome to Geeks Unleashed. This is episode 103. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jasmine. Oh, it's a bit earlier than usual for me at least, so bear with us, please. If you are watching on YouTube, we thank you so much. We would also very much appreciate it if you would like this video and subscribe to our channel. And if you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, we appreciate that as well. We would also love it if you would leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or Spotify.
We didn't have a podcast last week because we're both ill.
Yes.
And we probably should have, in hindsight, recorded after we were on Fable's show on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we should have just gone straight after that, because
Yeah.
the next day, me and you were like really ill. So,
Oh, yeah.
So Fable, who is known as One Collection Down on Instagram, he's returned on Instagram. He does an Instagram show weekly, cool. And I think episode 3 came out Saturday.
Yeah,
which
playing
was
Fable and his amazing friends.
That's right, and we were
amazing friends.
Yeah, we were on episode 2. That's the best so far. That's his best show, episode 2.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Duh.
Anyway, we woke up the next day, me and Jasmine, where we normally record on a Sunday, and we felt
I had no voice.
Awful. So I'd been struggling for about a week, and I'd started to get better on the Saturday, and then Sunday I was like, I'm feeling terrible. Jasmine's feeling terrible. But we were like, oh, let's just see how it goes. And to be honest, I felt pretty terrible week. And
yeah, I think I went to bed Sunday night at like 7 p.m. I was like, I am done with today.
Yeah, I suppose why not? Like,
yeah,
you know, if you're feeling sick. So anyway, because we didn't record last week's episode, we've decided to, in the sort of old school fashion of a double feature.
Yeah.
Double feature review.
You're getting a 2-for-1 today.
No catch up, no news, no nothing like that. We're gonna jump straight into Black Panther.
Yes.
So Black Panther, based off Marvel Comics Black Panther, which obviously I think you'll be very aware of if you're here. Was written by Ryan Coogler, directed by Ryan Coogler, starred the late Chadwick Boseman, Michael B. Jordan.
Lupita Nyong'o.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Denai Guerrera.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Martin Freeman. I could do that. Like
Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah. Letitia Wright, Winston Duke, Angela Bassett. Obviously, I can do that. Forrest Whitaker and Andy Serkis, who I always love Andy Serkis.
Me too.
Just always think of Lord of the Rings, but
of course, how could you not?
So vastly different though in this role.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, released in the United States on February 16th, 2018. It ran for 134 minutes. It cost them 200 million US dollars, and it made 1.3 billion at the box office.
Yeah. Wow. Talk about a return on investment.
There's no way that wasn't making a sequel.
Yeah.
So anyway, quick summary here. So following his initial appearance in Captain America's Civil War, where we got introduced to him, and he clashed a little bit against Captain America and the Winter Soldier. We won't cover that here, but we also got to meet his father in Civil War, who passed away in Civil War. One day we'll cover Civil War, and we'll go into that more. Anyway, this movie was, IMDb summary here, T'Challa, heir to the hidden but advanced kingdom of Wakanda, must step forward to lead his people into a new future and must confront a challenger from his country's past.
Dun, dun, dun.
Anyway, so I watched this originally in 2018 at the cinema. I can remember this. I came in a couple of minutes late. Don't normally come in late to movies, so I did miss the first couple of minutes. I remember when I came in, I saw the confrontation between T'Challa's father and the uncle. Didn't really know what was going on, and I missed that initial intro. Anyway, I haven't rewatched this movie at all until we were going to review this movie. So I've got to put my hands up in the air. I didn't like this movie when it first came out.
Oh my gosh.
So, but when
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, guys. That's it for us for today.
No, but like when I rewatched it completely changed my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm glad I rewatched it. And do you know what I think it is? I think we've been so used to how Marvel, and in a sense DC, make superhero movies.
Yes.
They're mainly in America. Mm-hmm. They very rarely go outside of America. I know the second Spider-Man film went around Europe, but again, it's places I'm familiar with.
Hmm.
And I think we're just very much used to those style of movies.
Right.
And in a sense, when they are in America, or even with DC movies when they're in Gotham or Metropolis, sorry, with Superman, that although they're fictional cities, they're ones that we're very aware of because Batman and Superman are characters that I'm very familiar with, having
Yeah.
grown up with them. I think the Michael Keaton Batman was like the late 80s or something. So they're although they're fictional cities, they're places that I have a knowledge of and a link to, and they're not jarring.
Yeah.
I think watching the first Black Panther, it wasn't just a Black Panther movie; it was a Wakanda movie, and it was the whole society and something that was very different from from Black Panther. And I
Hmm.
think, I was actually thinking about this. It's very much like Black Adam. So Black Adam wasn't
Yeah.
just a Black Adam movie. Black Adam was introducing a whole new city,
Hmm.
whole new type of way of life, a whole. Whilst it was in the DCEU, and we had, some links to the DCEU, like the Black Panther movie, it had
Hmm.
some links to the MCU. It was a fairly standalone movie, and you didn't even really need to have watched Civil War because they kind of covered enough links and flashbacks to Civil War to show that. And I think when I watched it, it was very, I think, jarring and not very much what I was used to watching.
Yeah.
So I remember walking out there thinking, I don't know if I enjoyed it. I was like, but that was me. That's not saying there's anything wrong with the movie. I just
Yeah.
think it was just I went in there expecting a certain type of film,
Ah, exactly. And it
and
did not deliver what you were expecting.
I guess so, yeah. Like, and
Yeah.
then when I rewatched this about a week ago, I watched it with my wife, and we both sat there and really enjoyed it.
Hmm.
And so I think I'm glad I rewatched it for this podcast, because for a long time I thought I didn't like it, but I always liked all the characters,
Yeah.
and I liked what I remember that. Like I remember because obviously they were in Civil War and Endgame and Infinity War. I liked all the characters and I liked all the interactions, and I always remember that classic line with Chadwick Boseman going to Captain America. I think it was in Infinity War. Get this man a shield, and
Yes.
no, it was Endgame, wasn't it? Sorry, no,
Yeah.
no, no, it was Infinity War. It wasn't Infinity War. Get this man a shield. Like I always remember that line. Like, and I always loved that interaction between Captain America and Black Panther. And
Hmm.
but yeah, so I'm glad I rewatched it, and I definitely would say on second viewing, I actually really did enjoy this movie, and I think going into it, I guess with the knowledge of what to expect was better for me.
Yeah.
So and yeah, that's kind of I guess my summary of this movie, really, like my thoughts on it. What about yourself?
So I saw it 3 times in theaters. Um,
So you hated every moment of it.
for me, it was like a whole new experience. Like I was really excited that Marvel was taking the chance to tell such a different story. And I went in with very low expectations because a lot of times, like these big conglomerates like the Marvels and the DCs, like it's always kind of up in the air, like whether or not they're going to have the nuance that comes when you're introducing an entirely different culture to the comic world. And so, but I think that Black Panther was the first time that Marvel proved that they had the chops to tell this kind of story and to tell it well. And I think Black Panther is what opened the door for us to get stories like Moon Knight and Miss Marvel, and like to tell those stories that have sort of this cultural thread that goes throughout the entire series. Um, to me, Black Panther was the thing for Marvel that made them realize, like, if you let people tell their own stories, they're going to be able to do it much better than, some guy in a boardroom deciding what is going to sell, right? So Black Panther for me it was a whole different experience of like, I can't believe that we get to see like an African nation that is thriving versus like those poor kids with the distended bellies and flies like in their eyelashes. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that we're getting to see an Africa that is not poor, that is not destitute, that is not like depending on the help of rich white countries. You know what I mean? And that was really exciting to see because that is definitely not something that we ever get to see. And I loved how they played up the different tribes and how each tribe had their own like color scheme and had their own, way of dressing, and everything was just so vibrant and great. And it was just really awesome to see that on screen. And I also love the way that they kind of portrayed the like Killmonger. I thought that he was such a, I'd say like a modern villain, because to me, what he wanted was practical, except he went about it in a very impractical way.
Yeah.
And so I think that that was really cool, because the first Black Panther film did a really good job of having gray area where it was kind of like, this guy's a bad guy because obviously he like kills people, but at the same time, like, I'm not upset with what you're trying to do. Like, I can see your thought process and I can see how that makes sense, but like, maybe let's not just like wage war on on the rest of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, I love this first film from the very beginning. It, I mean, it's, it sounds heavy, but like it meant a lot more to me than just another superhero movie. It was lovely to see so many Black superheroes in one place. But at the same time, it was so great to see a thriving African nation versus just this crazy poor African nation that's depending on help from other people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. Like, that's something I remember saying at the time, actually. Just, it was, I think my words were, it was very, I think, brave, but also modern of Disney
Yeah,
to have the confidence in this movie. And yeah, like, predominantly, I think, I'm just trying to think now, before 2008, mainly we'd seen, I guess, white male lead movies.
yeah,
So, from Marvel, I mean. And I know towards the end of the 90s, we had Blade, but that I think has been one of the only real exceptions. So,
yeah,
I know we've had Spawn, but that didn't do that well. Like, but yeah, predominantly like superhero movies have shied away from, I guess, well, from like many cultures other than white, really, and even female leads. I know we got
yeah,
Black Widow last year, but yeah, we haven't really seen that many, I think, in terms of diversity.
yeah,
So, um, yeah, so that I remember at the time saying I thought was good that we were finally seeing them expand.
yeah.
And I mean, we'll talk about the second one later, but it's made me now more curious to see what else they can do.
Oh yeah,
So, because Marvel obviously is, I know they haven't. I know, like, for instance, the Inhumans was a flop on the TV series side of things, but actually, if they were to come back and do it properly the way they should have done it, like, there's another, the Marvel has got lots of other societies out there,
right.
and like, and I haven't read many Black Panther comics, but I know that there was a series recently where Black Panther, where Wakanda actually had part of their society had expanded into space, and
Hmm.
so that there was like another part of Wakanda had left and gone into space and had their own societies and stuff like that. I'm actually curious to read that now, but yeah, no, I'd be interested to see what other things Marvel could be willing to do if they were to have the confidence in not just pushing, Spider-Man and stuff like
Right.
that. So,
Exactly. If they would just
um,
step into some of the characters that they already have, like it's not
yeah,
like you have to create all new characters for this stuff. They're already there, but you just put
yeah,
them in the hands of the right people and let them fly. I
yeah.
also
I
love
think,
that they took so much, like they actually took like pieces of different African cultures and put them into the film. Like the language that they speak, it's based
oh
on
yeah,
Xhosa. And I thought that was super super cool to see that. Like, when have you ever seen a superhero movie where they're speaking Xhosa with the clicks and everything?
I think also, like, when they talked about how Wakanda was made up of different tribes,
Hmm.
and I loved how they play around with the sort of the background of Africa itself. Like, they
Hmm.
don't just they incorporate actual. To me, it felt like realism, and even
Yeah.
the dress, the way they dressed, and um, sort of the piercings that you see on their
Hmm.
faces and their ears, um, and also you see that as well. I think with Neymar as well in the second
Hmm.
one, just in terms of the dress, they actually just not sticking with. Well, they're actually doing their research. So
Yeah.
I think that's important to me. So
Yeah.
so yeah,
It's less about them being comic accurate and more about them being location accurate.
yeah, Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this movie, do you have a favorite character in the first movie?
Favorite character. I it's hard to pick. I think when I
I
originally
know.
saw this, I would probably say Okoye might have been my favorite the first time around. And Shuri would have been a close second because I just thought that Shuri was so funny in the first film. And one of my favorite lines from her is when Everett Ross is shot and they bring him back to Wakanda, and she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, great, another broken white boy."
Yeah. Imagine they said that the other way around. Like, if it was an all-white film and someone said something like that, that would be a bad move.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Like,
Yeah,
I think Shuri is hilarious. I think,
yeah,
to be honest, she plays a lot of the heart, I think, in this
yeah,
movie.
definitely.
And I think I love the banter between her and her brother in this film. It's
Yeah,
very real.
yeah,
Like, obviously you've got a brother and I've got a sister, and seeing the banter between them it felt very real. And I can
oh
imagine they
yeah,
probably were really good like friends on set.
yeah.
So I imagine it was quite a humorous set to film this in.
I
So
think so too. Yeah, I like when you hear stories about them filming the first film, it seems like the cast came together like pretty early on and like
mhm.
just enjoyed the process.
Yeah, I thought about this with favorite characters, and I thought I can't not say T'Challa, like, because with
Yeah.
him not being in the second one. So I would say T'Challa was my favorite in this movie, and I'm not just saying that because he's not in the second film. I think Chadwick Boseman, from seeing him from his first, I remember seeing him in his first ever TV show, Person Unknown. I remember watching that like 12 years ago,
Uh-huh.
and he was like a military guy. Seeing how far as an actor he's come, and also to think how far this character's come from the fact that this is a character that you probably never would have dreamed would get their own movie, let alone make over 1 billion US
Right.
dollars.
Right.
And just the growth of his character from, I know, if I'm talking about from the page, from the comic book page to,
Hmm.
a character created, you know, like 60s, 70s, you know, and now actually having this movie, but
Yeah.
also a movie done well.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I felt, and I think in a way, what they did with this movie helped to strengthen the second film, where whilst Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa Black Panther was the central character of the movie,
Hmm.
they did well that they didn't just put it all behind him, like,
Right.
and push all the other characters down. They did well to essentially incorporate his mum, his sister,
Hmm.
the sort of the guards.
They actually
You
showed
know,
like a cohesive unit,
yeah,
not
yeah,
just one guy.
yeah. Well, I also think actually like a cohesive universe, and essentially
Hmm.
they showed a really strong society. They showed how it was all built together, from the different tribes, the different leaders, from their ceremonies, their
Hmm.
legacy. They built so much in, and actually seeing Chadwick have fallen on his shoulders that he's now king, but also now he's Black Panther. He has to save the throne. He has to respect the legacy of his past. He has to atone for the crimes of his father.
Hmm.
He has to stand up and save his whole society and his kingdom. And a lot within that movie went down. And essentially, I felt like he made very good decisions very early on.
Yeah.
Like even when he was getting challenged for the throne, you know, for him it wasn't about killing this person in ritual combat. He said, submit. He's like, your people need you.
Hmm.
Like he had very wise head on young shoulders
Yeah.
for a leader of a king. Now that probably comes a lot into, actually, kings aren't just overnight. He was born knowing he would one day be king.
Hmm.
So I imagine from the moment he started to develop intelligence, 7 or 8 years old, T'Challa was probably already started to be grown to be a king. A bit
Hmm.
like what you probably see in the real world, like where over here in the UK, William and Kate um, already know that one day William knows he'll be king.
Hmm.
Like, he's in his early 40s, but he knows whether that's 30 years from now, one day William will be king here.
Hmm.
And, he's, that's the life he's living. And obviously then he knows that his children, his old, is it George, his oldest son,
Hmm.
I can't remember how old George is, like 8 or something. George probably has already been told one day you will be king.
Hmm.
And yeah, okay, that's 60 years from now, probably. But they're born into that, knowing that, and they
Yeah.
have to, unfortunately, live a very different life to the life me and you live. You know,
Of course, yeah.
they can't go down the pub on a Friday night and get absolutely smashed unless you're Harry.
Well, yeah,
So,
but you're second born. If you're second born, then you are insignificant.
yeah, well, I would say insignificant,
You're
but
insignificant.
you're not going to see the crown anytime soon.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, for Harry to get the crown, like a lot of people got to die.
A lot.
So,
Yeah. A
yeah,
whole lot.
like,
Let's not talk about that though.
no. Or the other thing that can happen is they can choose to not take it. But anyway, coming back to Black Panther, T'Challa obviously was born knowing he'd be a king, and yeah, we didn't see that background. It'd make very interesting reading, or if they were to do an animated series or some sort of prequel, it'd be quite interesting to see him growing up and stuff like that. Maybe one day Marvel will obviously want to keep putting out content on Disney Plus. Maybe one day we'll get some sort of T'Challa in his younger days. But like to see the growth in this movie, from him arriving back at Wakanda and everything that he has to go through, getting challenged, making decisions for Wakanda, and then at the very end, when he says actually he's going to do something different, he wants to actually try and bring Wakanda into the world. And I felt like that was very, very good. Like in terms of how he wants to change how the dynamics of Wakanda work with the rest of the world.
Right.
But that's probably ideas he may have had even before he became king. But obviously, when you're not king, you can't make those decisions. So,
well, I think he was also heavily influenced by Nakia, because that was her dream. Because early on, after the funeral and after the ceremonial rites, he and she were talking, and it was just kind of like, no, we can't let people know what we have, because if we do, they're going to want it. And she was like, no, what we can do is we can take our wealth of resources and we can do what colonizers do, but we just do it better. Like, we don't have to enslave people, and we don't have to put people under our thumb. We can actually use our technology to lift people up. And so I think that she probably had a really big influence on him by the end of the film, deciding, you know what, this is Wakanda, this is what we have, and this is what we are going to contribute to the rest of the world.
Yeah. Okay, so the structure of the movie, and we'll move on to our second feature. Anyway, the structure of the movie, for me, I mean, we've touched on this a little bit as we've been going on, but I thought they did really well in terms of actually introducing or reintroducing Chadwick Boseman's character as T'Challa. Obviously, we met him in Civil War. But you could pick up this movie not having seen Civil War. So I think they did a good introduction of reintroducing him, or introducing him if you were new and not having seen Civil War. Because not everybody's a Captain America fan, right? Like, not everybody's going to watch those Captain America films for various reasons. Some people, Steve Rogers is a very different character to T'Challa. So people will not necessarily gravitate towards those films. And also, those three Captain America movies, the first one is very different to the second two. So I imagine there's some people that watch the first one and thought, I'm not watching those second two. And I'm like, because they're very tonally different, aren't they? Right. So you may not have gone in caring about Civil War. So I felt that like the structure of this movie was done well, in sense of you get dropped into this world. You get a unique introduction into actually vibranium, which I think is very it's very modern in terms of Marvel storytelling. And then we get that flashback with T'Challa's father, and then T'Challa arrives, and we get to see the hidden city of Wakanda. I love things like that, the hidden cities and all that. But it's not hidden through stepping through, like the Indiana Jones style films where they go through a waterfall and then suddenly it's opening up and got this whole city. It's not hidden through that. It's actually hidden through an invisible force field.
Through technology.
That's how advanced they are. Like imagine right now if there was a city in the real world, in the world where there's actually a hidden city hidden away that none of us know about, that are 2,000, 3,000 more advanced than the rest of the world, but they're so peaceful and their society is just so different. Like that, they know that they're advanced. They know that their technology could be devastating. So they can see actually the rest of the world is nuts. So we're not letting, Like, we're not letting Biden or
Yeah, screw those
Putin or
guys.
any of them guys. Like, they might
Yeah.
give it to that Canadian president because he seems pretty chilled out. But like, like, and I forget his name now. But
Justin.
yeah. Like, don't want to give it to Colombia or anything like that. So
Yeah.
and the Australians seem pretty chilled out as well. Might let them have some, but like for the rest of the world, no way.
Yeah.
So like, yeah. So but imagine there was a city like hidden away completely with their own, like we just said, society. And I think they we've just said this already. There, how they integrated all of the tribes to show us the world that they're in, the Wakanda. It doesn't feel like flat, and it doesn't feel like they show the same 2 or 3 sets. They, and I know they only spent 200 million on this, but I would imagine, I can't imagine Chadwick Boseman got paid that much money. Like, he probably did well,
Hmm.
but he probably didn't get like Robert Downey Jr. money to be in this film.
Right.
So that's probably why they were able to. Angela Bassett probably got paid good money, but again, she was a secondary character, so maybe not a massive amount.
Hmm.
So most of their budget, I would imagine, went into the set, the
CGI.
CGI,
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of thing, and
And their
promotion.
costumes, because
Yeah, the costumes,
they
yeah,
won an Oscar for
yeah.
their costume design. And I think Ruth Carter is definitely on track to pick up another one with the second film.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, um, I think in terms of the script as well, if the dialogue between all of the characters, it felt natural.
Hmm.
Sometimes, like when you're watching something, you can tell it feels forced or like um, you know, just not realistic. And
Yeah.
everything about it felt realistic, and
Yeah.
just and their mannerisms between each other. You can
Hmm.
see there was a lot. I think they talk about chemistry, like the chemistry between them all, and I'm not talking about like love
Yeah,
interest, just the
exactly.
like the chemistry between them all just felt
Yeah.
realistic.
It actually
Like,
felt like the cast liked each other. Like
yeah,
it did not, you didn't feel any kind of odd tension or anything like that.
and you could tell that they genuinely didn't like Killmonger. So maybe Michael B. Jordan was no, I'm only joking. That clearly was acting, but like, but I imagine Michael B. Jordan is a fairly strong character. Sorry, actor. Michael B. Jordan's probably, and he's been in the game a long time. He was like, I don't know how old he was, like 12 in The Wire or something. So I used to love him in The Wire. So it's weird actually because we only watched The Wire like 2 years ago, finished The Wire 2 years ago. So seeing him go from being a kid to suddenly being in Black Panther was
Yeah.
quite surreal.
Well, see,
So
Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler have a history because Ryan Coogler directed Fruitvale Station, which was based on a true story about a cop in San Francisco that killed a black guy on one of their BART trains. So that was probably why Michael B. Jordan had such a deep connection with Black Panther, just because him and Ryan Coogler have that connection.
yeah, no, I haven't seen that, but I'd like to. All
That
right,
is a watch it once and you never have to watch it again. Like it is a hard watch. It's great. It is a hard watch.
maybe one day then. So, is there anything you would have cut or changed or anything like that?
Um, Not particularly. I thought that the pacing in this first film was good. I loved that we got background into Killmonger, that we got to see, what the bad guys were up to, that we got to see how T'Challa was navigating wanting what is his name? Oh, what's Andy Serkis's character's name? Jeez.
Oh, I've forgotten as well.
Oh, okay. Anyway, he wanted that guy, but at the same time, like trying to play politics with the Americans to kind of make sure that they stay on the same page and they stay hidden. So I loved the dance that they did between like, no, we're a poor country. Ooh, no, we can't do that, to like being this badass superpower. Um, Claw, Ulysses Claw.
Oh yes, yeah.
And I just I loved that, and I thought that Claw was so funny. Like for a bad guy, he was so snappy. Like I thought that the dialogue was really snappy between everyone. Everyone was really witty. None of the lines felt forced. Like any of those zingers, they all landed perfectly. Like when Martin Freeman asked him some kind of question and Andy Serkis is like, "Oh yeah, I do have a mixtape coming out. Do you want it? Like I'll send you the SoundCloud link." Like, what the
Yeah.
So there was like the way that they kind of interweaved the humor, and like I said, everybody, all of their everything, all the interactions felt really natural. It didn't feel forced. None of the characters felt out of place to me. I just I really enjoyed the way that everybody played off of each other. Um, and I think some of my favorite sequences, I'd have to say, like the first time we see the waterfall where everybody is standing in the falls and they're dancing and singing, and it's like this really joyful kind of thing. That was a really great scene. But I also love it when Chadwick comes back after getting the heart shaped herb when he's up with the Jabari, and he comes back and he's like, I never yielded, and as you can see, I am not dead. I was like, yeah, man, go get your throne back.
Yeah. But yeah, like Killmonger was like, don't listen to him.
Yeah,
Like,
he's
just
like,
get on.
no, we done with that, man. I'm over it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're done with it because you've got the crown now. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's all right. You want to play by the rules until you've got the crown. But
Yeah.
the one thing I would have cut or changed, sorry, not cut. One thing I would have changed was I wouldn't have killed Killmonger off at the end.
Yeah, me neither. That's like my one beef with this
Yeah.
film is why did we have to lose him? But I think the way that it didn't feel so like such a wasted loss was because of what he said, and he was like, no. Because if I let you guys keep me alive, like I know for sure you're going to put me in chains, and I would rather die than be in jail. So
I think more I say the two reasons why I say I wish he hadn't have died is one, they do this a lot in Marvel and DC movies. They kill off the villain. And it's a shame when you kill off the villain because then you can't bring them back.
right.
And I'm not, but I don't get me wrong. I think they do this a lot on TV, like Black Lightning, for instance, 4 seasons, the same flipping villain throughout all 4 seasons. It is annoying. Like sometimes you need to let a villain go.
Yeah.
And they do this a lot in TV. They struggle to let villains go. Now, in movies, because movies are so rare and few and far between, especially big budget ones like this, it's been 4 years since Black Panther 1 to 2.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying I wanted to Killmonger necessarily in the second one, like to have a bigger part than he did in the first one. But actually, sometimes the story can require you to bring back your previous villain. I think if you think about like the Joker, for instance, in the Batman world, Michael Keaton, they killed him off, but actually it would have been really cool to have brought back Jack Nicholson later on in those movies. Like that would have been a cool thing to do, and they do it a lot. Unfortunately, they do kill their big villains off. I'm not saying I want the villain to be in every movie, but if there's an opportunity, even sometimes, like imagine if Heath Ledger hadn't died, any money, the Joker would have been in the third film.
Yeah, but that Batman film addresses the dichotomy between Batman and Joker, and for them to have said it out loud on screen is what made the difference, because he was Joker essentially is like, there is no you without me. Like you and I need each other to make this work. And I think just kind of acknowledging that is what gives you the longevity. Like for Marvel, the only villain that they keep around is Zemo. Like
Loki.
Well, yeah, and they switched Loki. Like they've turned Loki into some kind of like weird anti-hero,
but that's the other trouble as well. That when they carry the villain on too long, in the end, he or she can't stay a bad guy in the end.
Right.
And did you ever see a TV series called Farscape?
No, but I've heard of it.
Okay, so in Farscape, there's a line in towards the end of to the last season, or it might be in the last season, and it's so true. So basically, Farscape went on for like 4 seasons in a mini series or something.
Yeah.
And every time, so basically, season 1 had a villain, and then season 2, 3, etc. They kind of the main villain, whatever. And the star of the series, he said it out loud. What happens with our like he said, our bad guys or something? I can't remember what word he used for the bad guys, but he said something like, "First they chase us, then they join us." Like, but it's so true though. The longer they stay around, so I like what I'm trying to say is there's a fine line, but I just think the go-to in a lot of movies is to kill the bad guy off, and I'm just saying. And the other, so that brings me on to what the other reason why I wouldn't have wanted Killmonger to be killed off. Because obviously nobody knew what was going to happen with Chadwick.
Yeah.
And I think, not saying necessarily that he would have made a good Black Panther in the second movie, but if we could have seen a journey of growth
Mhm.
for him to maybe reform. And that would have been a really cool story to have seen Killmonger maybe potentially be affected by Chadwick's loss and or T'Challa, T'Challa, the loss of T'Challa,
Mhm.
and maybe the what happens in the second film. It would have been quite an interesting tale to have seen Killmonger go through a journey of remorse and change for his character. That would have been pretty cool to
I'm
have
not sure
seen.
he would have though. I
Maybe if you
I'm
don't know.
I'm not sure he would have. And I will say, like, I think there had been this whole big push after Chadwick's death to like recast T'Challa. And I think what Chadwick did with this film was pretty incredible because this Black Panther didn't start principal photography until early 2017. Chadwick Boseman was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer in 2016. So he was already battling cancer the entire time he was filming this movie, going through the production process, going through the release. Like, he had already been living with this diagnosis and just hadn't really told anyone. You know what I mean? And I think that is a ridiculous testament to how, I guess, like how important he thought this role was to balance, treatments and all of that kind of stuff with the rigorous filming schedule, plus all of the physical, training that he had to do to get in shape for the role. Um, and like even when they filmed Civil War, like he had already been diagnosed by then, and it's just kind of like what must be going through your mind, because stage 3 is pretty far along, and eventually, obviously, it led to stage 4, and then eventually led to his death, but stage 3 is not like early stages of cancer. So to be diagnosed with late stage cancer and to still put on the performance that he did, I think that is pretty incredible.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously the movie finishes with T'Challa beating Killmonger, like we said, and
Mhm.
huge, fantastic fight scene at the end. Um, Talking of scenes, or the word scene, did you have any favorite scenes throughout the movie before we bring it to a close?
Uh, no, I kind of already touched on the waterfall and
Yeah,
um a couple of other things, but those are pretty
yeah.
much my
No, that's
favorites.
fine.
Yeah.
So the movie ends, and we get a mid-credit scene, which actually had nothing to do with the whole movie.
Yeah. This
And
is this is the callback to Civil War.
Yeah. So they kind of link it around where you get to see Winter Soldier, aka the White Wolf,
Yes.
as they call him, coming out with no arm,
Yeah.
and that's kind of really it. And it's kind of just a lead in into Endgame. So
Yeah. Now that one is a direct correlation. Like, so if you watch Civil War, at the very end of Civil War, Cap asks T'Challa, "Hey, can you please help him? Can you
yeah,
help my friend get better?" And so they send Bucky to Wakanda to kind of undo the brainwashing that Red Skull had done to him in the first place.
mhm,
And so that's why he's like waking up for the first time, and they took his arm and they're going to give him a new arm, which we see in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
yeah. So rating out of 5.
This one gets a 5.
Yeah, no, I give it a 5 too.
It gets a 5.
Yeah.
It was exciting, and it was new, and it was different, and it was fun and funny, but it was also serious, and they pulled in so much real world stuff. Like, I just the idea that Killmonger was saying, "You guys have the most advanced technology in the world. Like, there is no reason that we can't use this technology to help our people all over the world. So we can help oppress people everywhere if we can arm them with the weapons that you have here." Which, very dangerous mindset, but at the same time, like, I can still see why, like, this you think that this is the way to free your people. And so I loved it. I loved how real it was, but at the same time, you still get this big fantasy element of it. Um, and it was just like a visual treat. So this movie, it got a 5 from me when I watched it in 2018, and it still gets a 5 today.
I think probably in 2018 I would have given it less, but now I haven't rewatched it. I do give it a 5 out of 5. So
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so moving into our second feature. So since the first movie of Black Panther, he showed up in Endgame, Infinity War. Uh, T'Challa also showed up in the What If cartoon, which was also voiced by Chadwick Boseman.
That was his last gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which the What If cartoon was on Disney Plus. There was 9 episodes, and have you watched it, by the way?
No, I've only watched the first two. So I saw the Peggy Carter one, and then I saw this one with T'Challa as Star-Lord.
Okay. So I love that miniseries. What miniseries? I think it's going to have a second season. So I love that season anyway of What If. So unfortunately, Chadwick Boseman passed away on the 28th of August 2020 before this movie even started filming. I did hear that he was given a copy of the script 3 weeks before he passed away. So I can imagine that his script was massively rewritten.
Yes, the rumor is that originally the plot of the film was going to be a lot of T'Challa struggling with all of the time that he missed while he was gone in the snap, and how his 5 years away has this effect on him now that he's back.
I mean, that would have been a unique storyline to have seen.
Yeah, because I think like on the one hand, you would definitely struggle with what happened to my kingdom while I was gone. And how can I just come back and step into it like nothing happened? So like to fight with, I've been gone from my people for 5 years, and also now you have this threat of this whole new society that nobody even knew about, like threatening your kingdom. So I think it would have been a really interesting. I think it would have been just as cerebral as the film turned out to be, but I think that would have been a really interesting concept to explore as well.
I heard as well that because in Endgame they make a scene about underwater earthquakes.
Yes.
And everybody at the time were like, anyone that knew anything about comics was like, that's got to be Namor. That's got to be Namor. Apparently that wasn't. They just threw that as a line in there. Yeah. So I think they probably were hoping by. I don't know if Marvel fully had the rights back to Namor at that point, but anyway, so they it kind of fits in nicely.
Yeah.
So, I guess you can, as a fan, think of it what you will. Like,
of course.
Is it? So I'm going to take it that it was Namor. So
yeah.
But yeah, so the script obviously got massively rewritten and only came out the other day. So it came out on, was it Thursday? Didn't it?
Yeah, it came out the 10th, November 10th.
Yeah, so I saw it yesterday on the 12th. You've seen it on the 10th.
I saw it on the 10th, and I'm going, as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to go see it again.
So who did you see it with on the 10th?
By myself.
Oh, okay. And then who are you going to see it with today?
I'm taking my mom and my aunt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
did you go on the 10th?
It's a girls' trip.
did you go on your own straight away because you were just desperate to see it before it got ruined then?
Yes. I left work early and I went on Thursday, and there were not very many people in my theater. I had an entire row to myself. So,
wow, that's crazy. I would have thought it would have been fairly packed on opening day.
But I went kind of early. I think that's probably why. So like if I had gone, like if I had gone at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night, I think it would have been packed.
Yeah, the cinema I was in was fully booked. So I went to, there's a cinema near me called The Light, and me and my wife had sofa seats. So,
oh, fancy.
Yeah, like it's a new cinema. Like it had like recliner. Like
so the place that I'm going today, it's the kind where it's like you got the recliner seats, but they also serve you food. So it's going to be like a whole like brunch film type deal. And whereas when I went and saw it the first time, it was just like I got some popcorn, like in regular movie seats. So
I came in and I saw some guy sitting next to me had a beer. Well, either side of me, like either side of our seats had beers. I said to my wife, I was like, "You want a drink?" She's like, she doesn't really drink that much, and I was like, well, she has the odd wine. I was like, you want a drink? She's like, no. Oh, no, come on, let's have a drink. She's like, all right, go on then. So I like ran back out and I went and got her a wine, a large. I deliberately got her a large wine, and grabbed myself a beer. And I was like, this is nice. It's sitting here on the sofa. I've got my feet raised up. Got a beer. I'm like, this is all right. And then afterwards, to be honest with you, like we'll talk about this as we go on. But when the film finished, I was like, let's go for a beer. I was like, I need a beer after this. So
yes, it was. I literally had that conversation with somebody. I was like, I walked out of that film, and it was just like, I was just so quiet. Like it was.
Oh yeah.
It was. It wasn't a downer. Like it was not like, oh my god, that was super depressing. It was just like, this film was emotionally heavy.
Yeah. So
Very heavy.
anyway, so it's based off of the Marvel comic Black Panther, written by Ryan Coogler again, and obviously directed by him too, but written by Joe Robert Cole. And I'll tell you what, you can tell us who
I got
is
the names this
starring in it.
time. All right, so this
Let's
one
just...
stars Letitia Wright, Lupita Nyong'o, Denai Guerrero, Winston Duke, Florence Kasumba, Dominique Thorne, Michaela Cole, Tena Huerta, Martin Freeman, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Angela Bassett.
Budget of 250 million, spent a bit more, and so far opening weekend has made 149 million.
Yeah, this film it's going to do well. I don't know if it's going to cross $1 billion.
I don't know if it will, but it will do. I reckon
It's
like
gonna do
eight to 900. I reckon.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to take off. And I gotta say, like, introducing these new characters in this whole new world, like Mr. Tenoch Huerta, please, if you are ever like in my area, call me, please, sir. I'm just saying, like. Also, like, I am obsessed now, and I really want to see like a Namor Aquaman showdown. I want to see how that goes.
Do you know? I would love it if they were to ever like pull their heads out of their asses and do Marvel versus DC on the big
Oh
screen.
my god!
Like,
I think it would be so funny if you literally just picked all of the characters that are pretty much exactly like each other and like made them like a Capcom versus Marvel kind of fight. Like,
well, there was a Marvel versus DC miniseries that came out about 95, 96. I've told you about this a few times, and they did the amalgam where they merged the characters. So like Captain America and Superman merged, Wolverine and Batman merged. But they were called Dark Claw. They merged Doctor Strange, Doctor Fate, and became Doctor Strange Fate. They merged Superboy and Spider-Man and became Spider-Boy. They did a whole bunch of these things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying I want the amalgam verse, but like it would be cool to have Marvel versus DC. That would be pretty cool.
I would love just some kind of ridiculous meta thing where it's like they all come in contact with each other and they're like, wait, you could breathe underwater. Me too. Like, I can breathe underwater too. Can you talk to the fish? Oh my god, I can talk to the whales. Like, this is so cool.
I can't. Aquaman and Namor just wouldn't get on. Like,
no, not at all. Not at all.
So before we go any further, actually, I hadn't planned this. I just sort of thought about it a minute ago. So this is the end of Phase 4. So yes. Phase 4 started in 2021 with Black Widow, carried on with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, then Eternals, then Spider-Man No Way Home, then Doctor Strange and the Multiverse in 2022, then Thor: Love and Thunder. Then Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is the last one.
Yep.
However, this is the first time they incorporated Disney Plus TV shows. So we got WandaVision season 1, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki season 1, the What If series that we talked about, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel. I haven't watched this, but I Am Groot. Like, I don't know if that, I don't know if that even counts. She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. I haven't seen this, but Werewolf by Night.
I've heard such good things about that.
I know. I need to watch it.
Yeah.
And actually, this probably isn't the last thing then, because the last thing, apparently, according to this list,
is the Christmas special, right?
The Christmas special, the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. So that will be actually the final.
Yeah, this is the final film of Phase 4, and then that's the final TV series of Phase 4.
Yeah, like so.
And Ant-Man kicks off Phase 5.
Phase 5, yeah. So Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Have you seen the trailer, by the way?
No.
Hilarious.
But I don't. I mean, the Guardians are just not my thing.
Oh, I think you're going to have to watch it. It's got.
I'll watch it, but like,
it's got Kevin Bacon in it. They actually bring Kevin Bacon into the Guardians of the Galaxy as Kevin Bacon. Like, the trailer's brilliant. They want to cheer up Star-Lord, so they decide to go and kidnap Kevin Bacon.
Oh my gosh!
What? Well, honestly, can't wait to watch this. Like,
oh man.
Anyway, before we go any further, out of all of those movies, do you have a favorite?
Out of the Phase 4 films?
Well, just the movies, not the TV series. So you got Black Panther, you got Thor: Love and Thunder, the Multiverse of Madness, No Way Home, Eternals, Shang-Chi, and Black Widow.
That's tough because
I know. There's a lot of good ones in there.
Like, the last time I was on a long flight, I watched Shang-Chi like 3 times on the same flight. Like, I really, really, really love Shang-Chi.
Okay, well, top three out of these.
Oh, well, top 3, definitely. I would put Shang-Chi at the top. I'd put Black Panther, Wakanda Forever second, and then I'd put Spider-Man third.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what? Those probably are the top three. I probably would say Spider-Man No Way Home, then Black Panther, then Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Spider-Man fan.
Yeah. The
I
Spider-Man
don't
was
know.
so good though.
I don't
Like,
know if you know.
yeah. No way.
Like,
For those of you
yeah.
listening, Mark has a like Spider-Man banner hanging in his background.
Like, but I think Marvel should be proud of Phase Four.
Yeah.
Finally, a lead female movie, Black Panther. I'm disappointed that it
In
didn't
Black Widow.
have. Sorry, Black Widow. Sorry, Black Widow movie. Shang-Chi, obviously an Asian-led movie.
Yeah.
Eternals, obviously, is a completely diverse,
Yeah.
led movie. Spider-Man: No Way Home. Honestly, what fans have been wanting for years.
Years.
All three Spider-Men in the
Yes.
same movie.
Yes.
Doctor Strange in the Multiverse, I'll be honest, I wasn't too keen on it.
I still haven't seen it. I still haven't seen that. Still haven't seen Thor: Love and Thunder. Those are. I need to just go ahead and sit down and watch them.
Love and Thunder was okay, but Black Panther as well, I think, and that's what we're going to talk about now.
Yeah.
So, the summary from IMDb: the people of Wakanda fight to protect their home from intervening world powers as they mourn the death of their king T'Challa. Mm-hmm. So, do you want to go first in your thought? Just your summary of your thoughts.
This one, this one, I think it drops you. Well, we didn't say this at the beginning. Spoilers, okay? Like this movie just came out. It's still opening weekend as it's at the time of recording this. Like we are literally about to ruin this entire film. So please be warned. But as far as this movie, like it drops you in at the very beginning to T'Challa's death. And I think that was the best possible way they could have done that. It's like, it's a cold open. You hear background noises and you hear dialogue before images pop up on screen. And it was literally just chaos in Shuri's lab, and you had no idea what was going on and you didn't know what was wrong. They were very vague about the disease that the king died of. But I think given the real world situation, I don't see a way that they could have handled T'Challa's death any better. It was obviously everything was like off camera. But it literally drops you into the really heavy emotion at the very, very, very beginning of the film. And it kind of like gets that first big emotional hurdle out of the way. And I think that was perfect because they address it. You're emotional about it. They kind of put it to rest with the funeral and the ceremony. And then it's kind of like, okay, now let's get down to business. And I just think that was really great. I really thought that they handled that part well. And as far as like the rest of the film, it was the topics that they cover. Like to me, this is not a superhero film. This is a film about grief and how if you don't deal with your grief, it will manifest in awful ways. And I think we see that both with Shuri and with Namor. Like Namor is, I don't know, 600 years old or something crazy like that. But like, he is still, everything that he does, he is still kind of grieving and mourning the death of his mother. And Shuri is kind of going through the same process where she is grieving the death of, her brother. And it's kind of just like, this is a film about grief to me. It's a film about how there are so many different ways that we can process emotions, and like if you don't deal with it, it's going to be ugly. And that is not what I was expecting at all. Like I don't think I was expecting the big superhero spectacle like I was in the first film, but for us to get such a nuanced story before we ever get to like the big battle toward the end of the film, I thought it was just done really, really well. I really enjoyed this film, even though it was like, I'm very glad I had tissues.
And when I saw it with my wife, like there was a few times she reached for tissues.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally cried 3 times. There were three times I had big cries.
I'll be honest, I didn't cry.
Of course you didn't, Mark.
Only one movie I think ever made me have a tear in my eye, and that was Calendar Girls.
Oh my
So
gosh.
have you seen Calendar Girls?
I love Calendar Girls.
Oh no. Anyway, obviously I'm not a robot. There was like, there was points where I did genuinely feel sad.
Yeah.
So I I did watch maybe like one trailer for this movie, but I
Hmm.
tried to stay away from as much as possible.
Me too.
I tried to even stay away from my own thoughts on this movie. I don't mean like I tried to not overanalyze what I thought going in.
Right.
I tried to not overthink who would be Black Panther.
Hmm.
I'd made an assumption, I'll be honest. I thought
Yeah, I
it
was wrong.
probably I no, I thought to myself it probably is going to be Shuri,
Hmm.
but I was like, but I don't want to just go in thinking it's Shuri because then I
Hmm.
didn't want to like get hopes up behind that. So I just thought I'm just going to be open minded about whatever approach they take. I knew that Riri Williams was in it
Yeah.
as Ironheart. I knew that we would get that, so I kind of knew that that would happen. I knew that we would see a sort of new Iron Man, so to speak.
Hmm.
I knew that we would see essentially the world of Wakanda having a much like all of the actors having bigger roles than they
Hmm.
probably originally were supposed to. So Angela Bassett,
Oh
had a
my God.
much bigger role than the first movie,
Yeah.
and I'd heard that she sort of was meant to have a much smaller role, but they went to her and even asked her if she could do what stunts would she feel comfortable in doing, and
Hmm.
because that wasn't probably a lot. I what I kind of foresaw whilst I watched this film, not foresaw, whilst I watched this film, I kind of imagined lots of these scenes probably were in the original script,
Yeah.
but actually rewritten where they moved T'Challa out, but then moved somebody else into it.
Hmm.
So, and obviously, probably new scenes were obviously created in the wake of T'Challa not being in it. But I imagine that whole big scene with Angela Bassett and Riri in the throne room, I can imagine was probably T'Challa and
Hmm.
Riri. I don't know, like maybe not, but and even the fight scene at the end with Shuri and Namor, that was probably T'Challa and
Hmm.
Namor. So I imagine there was a lot of having to move stuff around to try and make this work.
Hmm.
Now, because none of it had been filmed, it wasn't like Paul Walker in Fast and
Right.
Furious. It
Right.
wasn't like them having to piece now together what 70% of a completed movie.
Yeah.
They actually were able
They
to do
had
a
the
complete
ability to start from
rewrite. Yeah,
scratch, which they
yeah,
did. I'm not sure how much of the original script they kept, but that was one of the reasons that this film got delayed, was because they had to start over.
yeah. So I can imagine a lot of the ideas were brought over in
Hmm.
terms of introducing Namor and that kind of thing. So they don't actually like say he's from Atlantis. So
No.
and I imagine that's because of Aquaman came out first. They didn't want
Yeah,
to
he's
copy.
from Talocan.
Yeah, so that's pretty new. So I'm not overly knowledgeable on much of the comics world of Namor
Hmm.
and Black Panther, and I've read a lot of Fantastic Four, which I know I've read him in, but my knowledge on these characters is pretty weak. But like you said, I went in with sort of no expectations. I knew that T'Challa obviously wouldn't be in the movie.
Hmm.
I knew they'd have to address it, but I didn't know how they would address it. I thought they did really well. That it was essentially a cold open. They walked in,
Yes.
and literally within about 3 minutes, they said he's dead.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how they would kind of do it. I didn't know if it was going to be like 10 minutes in, showing various scenes, and
Hmm.
but I think that was probably the best way of doing it. And it
Hmm.
was very sad and emotional. Then 1 year later, after the funeral scene, it picks up, and then seeing really Angela Bassett as Queen,
Hmm.
honestly, such a strong actress.
Oh my
Like,
God, she
just
was phenomenal in this film.
yeah. So just seeing her presence was just probably one of the strongest roles in the movie. And I would say the bulk of this film was probably carried on her shoulders.
Yeah.
But I read a comment before I saw this film was that this film has no lead actor, but has a film full of side characters. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that comment, but I can understand the ethos of that because a lot of these people were side characters in the first film,
Yeah.
and they just I would say it's almost like you could almost say it's two things: a film of side characters or a film of lead characters.
Yeah,
It's
I would
definitely
completely disagree with that comment.
it's an ensemble cast, very
Yes.
much like Eternals. So
Yeah.
Eternals was an ensemble cast with maybe one or two people that kind of stood out above the others,
Yeah.
but it wasn't anyone I would say was a lead in Eternals. And this is very much like, I would say it feels very similar to Eternals, and essentially it's like an ensemble cast where different scenes are carried by different characters,
Yeah.
and you see the journey, like you say, really things like that, what happened with Chadwick Boseman dying, um the impact that would have on his family, his friends,
Hmm.
you don't often see in big budget movies.
Right.
Normally you do see a recasting, but actually you got to see the real impact of something like this.
Yeah.
So, when Iron Man died, okay, we got the funeral at the end of Endgame, but we haven't seen any impact other than the second Spider-Man film. Peter Parker goes through some grief during that film,
Hmm.
but really, because it's quite a light-hearted film, he's still trying to date Mary Jane and still
Yeah.
swing around Europe and
Her
have a good
name
time with
is
his friends.
MJ, not Mary
Sorry,
Jane.
MJ, sorry. But really, the grief was only minor because it's quite
Yeah.
a light-hearted film. But this whole film was covered in grief,
Yeah.
but covered in legacy, tradition, and actually
Yeah.
the impact of losing a king,
Hmm.
and what that sort of means to everybody. And I guess in a sense, I know we talked about this a minute ago with the royal family. Obviously, we got to see that earlier this year where we lost our queen,
Hmm.
and whilst um, she lived a full life to the age of 96, and it wasn't particularly unexpected.
Hmm.
I got to see how my country was affected by that, and in some ways I was quite shocked to see just how everybody in the UK kind of was affected. Like,
Hmm.
a lot of people wanted to go and pass their respects to the queen, and obviously her her casket was out on display and people could walk past and you know um essentially get to see, and I don't know, pass the respects and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I got to see the passing of the torch, so to speak, to obviously King Charles, and
Hmm.
there is obviously real world impact, and to see that in this movie using the legacies and traditions that they'd already created in the first movie,
Yeah.
in that society, I found it was a very interesting take, while also lining up a new Black Panther and a new enemy in Namor.
Hmm.
It felt to me very much like almost a brand new movie, like an origin movie at the same time, as well as a
Right.
sequel.
Right.
So I think you could have probably watched this movie without watching the first one, which is very unusual. But I think they did well to carry that world on, but making it sort of accessible to new people. So
Yeah, I would say that
uh,
you could do that. You just would not have any of the emotional impact
yeah,
that everybody else got from having watched the first film.
yeah, definitely. I think they did really well, and I'm glad that they didn't rush to have Black Panther. So it's like a 2.5 hour film, and I think you only get Black Panther for like the last half an hour,
Yeah.
which I actually was quite happy with. Like, I thought to myself that Black Panther might be in it early. When I
Hmm.
realized Black Panther wasn't going to be, I was actually quite happy with that. I
Yeah.
was sort of enjoying that world that we were seeing, and I kind of got lost in the world that they were building following the death of T'Challa.
Yeah.
That I'd actually in my mind pushed Black Panther away, and I knew that
Yeah.
we were going to see Black Panther because I'd seen Black Panther in the trailer,
Right.
but I didn't really care that Black Panther wasn't rushed in. I
Right.
enjoyed
Because they
this.
were telling such a good story just about the dynamic between this underwater world and Wakanda that
Mm.
you didn't need that superhero battle any earlier than it happened.
Yeah, yeah. So, do you have any favorite characters? Like more than one? Like, because
Uh
there's a lot in here to
there are
just pick
so
out
many.
one.
I obviously like Shuri again. She was my favorite. I also really liked the introduction of Riri Williams.
Mhm.
And I liked the way that Shuri and Riri interacted together. Um, I also, hands down, Angela Bassett as Queen Ramonda she was phenomenal. That sequence at the beginning where she's talking to the UN and they're all like, Wakanda promised
Oh
that you
yeah.
were gonna help us and you didn't help us. And she was like, look, I'm sick of y'all trying to steal my shit. Like, and I love her confidence, like the way she carries herself, the way that she kind of in the funeral scene when Shuri is just so overcome with emotion that she like collapses on the coffin and Queen Ramonda just like pulls her and straightens her up and makes her stand up straight. Like she was so regal. She was so strong. She was so good. I just thought that she was such a pillar in this film.
Yeah, so for me, the characters, I think Angela Bassett is probably my favorite in this movie. Um, she was so strong as the Queen.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, that opening scene at the UN where she just marches in those people,
Hmm.
like, and basically looks down on
Yeah.
France and was
Like, here are your mercenaries, France. Thanks so much.
yeah, and they
Try
just
again
went,
next time.
yeah, they were like really quiet, like
Yeah.
so caught out, and
Yeah.
they probably just didn't think that they were caught out. Like, I love the confidence in France, like, yeah, share your stuff,
Yeah.
but we know that we like, and they would have known that they lost their soldiers in that mission, but they probably thought that they didn't, that Wakanda didn't realize they were French or something. I don't
Or they
know,
probably thought that they had just killed them. Like they did
yeah,
that they
yeah,
didn't like keep them alive. Yeah.
yeah, and obviously they couldn't identify who they were or whatever.
Yeah.
Like Wakanda, and then Wakanda just marched them in, and and she was like, "Look, here's your guys back.
Yeah.
Don't touch my stuff again." And everyone went really quiet.
Yep.
Probably all gone back to afterwards. They all probably all went back together to say, "Like, how are we going to steal their stuff? Like, how are we going to do
Yeah.
it?"
Yeah.
Like, because they're all impatient. They want to steal their stuff.
Yeah.
So I think in some ways that's probably the one thing that T'Challa probably shouldn't have done, was probably say we're going to share our stuff.
Well,
Like,
that's exactly what Namor said.
yeah. So yeah, but Neymar, and then Neymar, unfortunately, is going about it the wrong way.
Yeah, a little bit.
So his idea is we're just going to rule them all. So
Yeah, he's very like in line with Killmonger. He's like, no, we're gonna preemptively like strike the surface world. That way,
I mean, it's not
they're
really
gonna
going to
know.
work.
Of,
It's not
well,
really going to work if you can't breathe on land. I mean, it's not realistic. So I know Namor can, but none of his people can. So
yeah.
how's that going to work out long time for you,
I mean,
Namor?
you would
Long
only be
term.
able to attack coastal cities. You wouldn't be able
Yeah,
to attack like interior cities at all.
yeah. I mean, he's not going to do very well in the middle of America, is he? So
No.
like, yeah, Texas should be all right. So,
Yeah.
Texas will be sitting there laughing, going, "Yeah, see you guys later." So, anyway, so yeah, so anyway, I think the Queen is brilliant. I
Mhm.
think Shuri, I think she's good. I'm just not sure she's probably strong enough for it all to be carried on her shoulders. So that's where I think more of an ensemble cast worked in this movie. I
Yeah.
think if they'd have pushed her forward to be the central character, I'm not sure she's strong enough to carry the whole franchise on her
Yeah.
shoulders. But I think that's why it works well as an ensemble cast.
Hmm.
I think my other favorite's got to be M'Baku.
Yeah.
Like,
His
he's so
evolution
good.
was great. Yeah, to see
Oh
him
yeah,
actually like not be so combative and just to kind of be like actual counsel. And then there's one scene in the film where he's like, I'm doing what your brother asked me to do. Like your brother asked me to help you, to be like a voice of reason, to listen to you. And so that's what I'm doing. And
Mhm,
I thought that just shows how far he's come
mhm.
and that he
Yeah.
no longer feels like an outsider, that he feels like he is now part of the community instead of just like living up in the mountains watching everything.
I love his growth throughout this film.
Yeah.
Like he's like,
He's like, we got to kill
oh,
the fish man. I thought that was so funny.
oh, the fish man. That's
The
such a
fish
great
man.
comment. The fish man. He honestly, he should. Do you know what I would love if they were to get that actor to do stand up comedy, but as M'Baku, like, like to get him to be Baku
Yeah.
on at the Comedy Store,
Oh my God, that
like
should be
would
a
be
what if
so sweet.
episode. That
That
should
yeah, that
totally be a what if episode. Like
like
get
what if
M'Bako in front of a crowd to do stand-up comedy.
yeah, what if M'Baku left his tribe and became a comedian? Like that would
You're
be
welcome for that idea, Marvel. Please give us credit or at least invite us to the premiere. Thanks so much.
honestly, I think as his character doing comedy, do you know what they should do with oh shit, what's his name from Guardians of the Galaxy? The wrestler guy, what's his character
Oh,
called?
Drax.
Drax. They
Yeah.
should do a Drax and M'Baku miniseries. That
It should
live
be
action.
it should be a buddy cop series. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that would be so funny.
Oh, they should.
They
Yeah,
would never get anything done.
Drax and Baku should somehow team up. Maybe just like a TV series, like
Oh
not
my
a miniseries,
God.
a
I
TV
would watch
special.
that.
Oh, I would
I would
so
watch
watch that
that.
too.
Yeah.
Like they decide, I don't know. Like yeah, that'd be brilliant.
I would watch that. Marvel, make
Yeah,
it happen, please. And remember, you heard it on Geeks Unleashed first. You're welcome.
something with Baku and Drax, or him at the Comedy Store. Anyway. So Baku, I think he's got great comedy timing,
Hmm.
but he's so serious otherwise.
Yeah.
Like when he says like, "Oh, you guys have got none of the flour because this wise council decided to put
Yeah.
Killmonger in as king."
Yeah.
i.e., you lot are idiots.
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
but I love how he just speaks the truth in such a comical way. So
Yeah. But at the same time, like he's still rational because like at the very beginning, he was like, no, I mean, why are we even having this conversation? Like, kill the fish man. And then toward
yeah.
the end of the film, he's like, okay, maybe we don't kill him. Like now that I see that they call this man a god, if we kill him, that will really, really upset his people. And then we have turned him into a martyr and we have made a big problem even bigger.
Oh yeah, if they'd have killed him, I mean, so basically, you take away the leader of
Mhm.
a society that's been in place over 600 years,
Yeah.
you're going to create chaos.
Yes.
So it's a bit like when, you know, governments decide to go and take away the leader in,
Destabilize nations.
yeah,
Yeah.
destabilize nations.
America is very good at
Like,
that.
I know, I was thinking that, but I didn't want to say anything. Like, you know, or even if they take away the head of cartels,
Yeah. Yeah.
like then that creates infighting and
Yes.
creates much bigger so it creates much bigger problems.
Yeah.
So
But think about it. That's exactly what Valentina said. That's what she said to Everett Ross at some point. She was like, listen, the only solution that we have as the United States is in order to get Wakanda to do what we want them to do, we have got to destabilize this nation. That is our plan. And Everett Ross is like, no, this is ridiculous. Like they're our allies. And Valentina is like, no, they're not. But we got this. Don't you worry. And then she like had her ex arrested. Like the next thing you see is him in chains, like in a prison van. You know what I mean? Like,
I love that. I love that they put them two together, like as previous, like husband and
yeah,
wife.
that
And
was when he said that, I was like, oh my God, your ex is Valentina? Like that is
they don't
crazy.
go together. They don't
Not
go
at
together at
all.
all. So Valentina, actually, what before we move on from the characters, Valentina, the moment she came in,
Mhm.
I was like, oh, here we go, lining
Yeah,
up the Thunderbolts movie
of
here.
course, of course.
So she shows up in um Captain, not sorry, Winter Falcon and the Winter Soldier very at the very end to recruit. I think it's Zemo. No, not Zemo. Sorry, the
The
new
fake
Captain
Captain
America.
America.
The fake Captain America. I've forgotten his name now. Yeah, fake Cap.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then she shows up at the end of Black Widow to
Mhm.
recruit
Yelena.
Elena, and obviously she's going to somehow recruit Zemo, and yeah, it makes me more excited for
Yeah.
Thunderbolts. So
So there's Easter eggs for sure. Like
yeah,
it
yeah.
again, you could still have seen it and not know all of this stuff. Like she is still a very shady character even in this film, but like I thought that was a really good addition. I did not expect Valentina to be in this film.
Oh no,
Um,
I didn't expect it to be in it, and
yeah, but I like the role that she played and just kind of how like when because we see the whole thing come full circle at the beginning of the film. Queen Ramonda is like, you cannot have our weapons because we know how you people are. Like we know what you
oh
would
yeah,
do with
yeah,
them,
yeah.
and that's exactly what Valentina says at the end. And Everett is like, we can't, like Wakanda cannot give up vibranium. They can't, because do you know what countries like the US would do with it? And Valentina is like, oh my God, yeah, I have dreamed of what I would do if I had the power of vibranium. And it's kind of like, you can't let the psychos just run free with this unlimited power source. You know what I mean? So I thought that that was really interesting. And I love Valentina because she never hides her villainy at all. She
Oh
at
no, no,
all. Like
definitely not.
it's not a secret.
So throughout the movie, we'll talk about the end credits in a minute, but throughout the movie, I think the writing's perfect.
Yes.
I can't make any changes there. Flows well,
Yeah.
structured well. Uh, I mean, the way they took the emotion. One of the things I loved was Stormzy's song kicking in. Like, so
Mm.
Stormzy's a British rapper, in case you don't know.
I do
And
know
like,
because of you. Thank you.
so you should listen to more of his music if you haven't already. Um, um, I just think everything's perfect in this movie. There's no changes I would make. There's no scenes I would alter. There's nothing I would cut or anything like
Yeah.
that. I think they just handled it really well.
Yeah.
I would say favorite scenes is quite difficult for me to pick a favorite scene. I would kind of section into two things. I would say one of my favorite scenes actually is the mid-credit scene.
Oh
Um,
my God. That was
but
that
one
was my third cry.
uh, but one of my fighting scenes, I would say I love the Riri Williams introduction where
Hmm.
Shuri and everyone there did the car chase scene,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. There's the introduction of Riri going from getting her off the college dorms into her cool secret warehouse, because of course she's got one at
Of
18
course.
at 18 years old or how old she is, like,
19.
19, whatever, like, of course she's got this hidden warehouse of all this gadgetry in, and
Yeah.
um
They kind of explain why
yeah,
she had it though.
yeah, well, yeah, no, I
It's
know,
a,
but
it's a
like,
throwaway line, but still.
yeah. So anyway, like, I love that whole fight scene was cool, but then at the end, I love the fight scene between Shuri and Namor. I
Yeah.
think that was really cool, and like the fact that it was her intelligence plus obviously now her new fighting skills. So
Hmm.
I thought that was cool, and I love the moment she decides to save Namor's life, and that's
Yeah.
very much something her brother would do, and so that she wasn't influenced by Killmonger. She was
Yeah.
actually bearing in mind her brother's mentality rather than essentially her uncle.
Yeah.
So she went down her brother's route rather than her uncle's route. Her uncle would have killed him, where T'Challa would never have killed him. And like you just said, had she killed him, things would have got much worse. So
Yeah.
I think those two were, in terms of fight scenes, were my favorite. But the rest of the film is kind of littered with very sort of emotional scenes.
Oh yeah.
I think Angela Bassett, I think I loved her opening scene at the UN. That's probably one of
Hmm.
my favorite scenes of her. But I would say just the whole movie in general is just such a strong movie,
Yes.
and I can't fault it in any way.
Yeah.
So, do you want to add anything to that? Or?
Yeah. Okay. So as far as favorite scenes go, I have quite a few. First of all, like when it comes to the writing, when they are doing the Namor introduction and they're like, my people call me Kukulkan, and Kukulkan is like a serpent god. When they are telling that story, they pulled so much actual history from the Mayan people that inhabited the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. Because like when I went to Chichen Itza, uh, and we are learning the story of Kukulkan and like all of his exploits, like it was so interesting to me that they pulled so much real history into Namor's background. And I found that fascinating. I thought that was just such a really cool intersection of real life and this fantasy world that they've created. So the fact that they use real gods and real history, I thought was really, really cool when talking about the backstory of Namor. And as far as favorite scenes, when Shuri takes the manufactured heart-shaped herb and she goes to the ancestral plane, and instead of her mother, she sees Killmonger, I was like, I am about to lose my mind. That was so perfect. It was so perfect because he completely encapsulates all of the rage that she's feeling. And she has all of this rage built up inside of her, and she doesn't know what to do with it. And the fact that she saw Eric instead of her brother or her mom or her dad on the ancestral plane, I thought that that was phenomenal. I thought that was just phenomenal writing. Like, because nobody expected that. Of all the people sitting on that throne, I never expected it to be Killmonger. You know what I mean? And like, it's almost like you forget that he went through the whole process and actually became Black Panther for a little while. So, like, to see him again and just the way that he was kind of like, "Hey, cuz, what's up? Like,
I know, I
you're the
know, I
one
know.
that picked me to be here." And she's like, "I would never have picked you to be here." And he was like, really?" So he's still very much his snarky self that we remember him as in the first film. And the watching the interaction between Shuri fighting with her internal demons to not do what Killmonger did, when that comes into play later when she asked Namor to yield, I was like, this this is too perfect. So that was definitely one of my favorite scenes. And another favorite scene was, like you said, the mid credits, which for all
We'll
of
talk
the
about
people.
that. We'll talk about it now. Like, so basically, just before that mid credits, so the scene, um, like we said, was a movie about grief. So very early on, Angela Bassett and what's her name, Queen Ramonda and Shuri are burning the
Their funeral
garments,
garb,
funeral
yeah.
garments. And they said they do it a year after the death, and sort of they bring her close to mourning,
Hmm.
and sort of start to move on. So Queen Ramonda burns hers. Um, this is just before they meet Namor. Shuri
Hmm.
doesn't want, she's not ready at that point to do it. And I actually did think this is quite nice that they held this off for the end of the movie. So
Hmm.
she goes to um, I've forgotten her name, T'Challa's ex-girlfriend was
Nakia.
Nokia. So she drives up there and says, it's ready, I'll come with you. And she's like, no, I want to do this on my own. So she goes down and she's sitting on the beach. And I thought, to be honest, it's quite a nice way to end the movie. She's
Hmm.
bringing her mourning to a close. I did think in my mind, I wonder if, like, we're not going to see this, but I thought maybe in like a year's time, will she do the same for her mum or something like that?
Hmm.
I assume she's probably not ready to say goodbye to her mum yet, but she's sort of saying goodbye to her brother now. And
Hmm.
I thought it was quite a nice way of doing it. And then I thought the titles were quite nice, that actually then the sort of the titles came up, but it wasn't like a black screen or anything. It was sort of looked like a sort of a light blanket and sort of
Hmm.
float sort of wind catching the blanket and the titles coming up across it. And it was all very calm and quiet. And I just remember being in the cinema and everyone was very quiet while it was on, because it obviously wasn't like, this movie wasn't overly joyful, and it was
Right.
actually very much a sad movie, and about T'Challa obviously, but Chadwick Boseman as well.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, whilst Angela Bassett, her character also got killed off in this film, which was very shocking.
Yeah.
So to have that, Shuri's now on her own, no father, no mother, no brother,
Hmm.
and she's obviously now got the Black Panther mantle on her. And whilst I don't think she's going to rule Wakanda, I think that she's still got the weight of that on her, and she's sort of
Yeah.
sitting on the beach and bringing the film to a close, and those things happen, and then suddenly the mid-credits scene comes up, and I didn't expect it to just come back to Shuri sitting on a beach.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be very much to line up the next Marvel movie, like, I don't know, a clip for another movie or
Hmm.
something, you know what I mean, like, like Winter Soldier or someone, or something. So I was like, oh, she's sitting on the beach, and then out comes Nucky with this little boy, and I was like, I know what's going on here.
Yeah.
And she's like, this is your auntie, da 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 da. And then he says at the end, I'm Prince T'Challa, and my
Hmm.
dad is King T'Challa. And I was like, well played, Marvel. Well
Yes.
played. I was
Yes.
like, I literally thought, this is how you're going to do it. This is how you're going to bring back Black Panther as
Exactly.
T'Challa,
Exactly.
but in a respectful way,
Yes.
to not recast. I was
Yes.
like, so I thought this sequence played so well in terms of like legacy, and
Yes.
just very respectful to the sort of the
Right.
franchise, to the fans, to his family, to his friends,
Right.
like of Chadwick Boseman. I mean, like, and just I thought well played in doing this, because there was a lot of, initially no one wanted to be recast, but then as
Yeah.
time went on, people were like, no, 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 recast. But actually,
Right.
probably Marvel had made that decision to not recast,
Yeah.
and that was a good decision. Now I see,
Yes.
like, and
They had it under control the whole time for all of those naysayers. Like, I hope you
yeah,
choke on your popcorn.
yeah,
But like, I thought that was so perfect, especially because with this phase five is going to be all about timelines, time travel, different time periods, different multiverses. You now have the ability to build in a time jump in the next Black
mm,
Panther film. So we have this kid at the end of the second film. Whereas by the time we get to a third Black Panther film, you can recast T'Challa as a grown adult, and it would fit within the timeline of all of the multiverse madness that is happening in phase five. And it makes perfect sense. Like, this is the perfect way to end phase four, so that when it comes time to have this film again in phase five or six, you build in that time jump, you build in that recasting, but you're still honoring the legacy because they have the same name. And I think that was also very brilliant. Like, that was just so well done. And again, that was like my third cry of the film,
yeah,
like at
yeah.
the very
So,
end.
so the next Ant-Man does kick off phase five, which is,
Yeah.
we know which Loki was heading this way, and
Hmm.
obviously we know it's heading into, well, even Doctor Strange is heading this way, multiverses,
Hmm.
timelines. Kang is the big villain of phase five.
Yeah.
But so I've got expectations for the sequel. I've written down a couple of pointers
Okay.
here. I think the first one you've kind of addressed here. When do I think Black Panther 3 will come out? I think it's going to
Phase
be at
six.
least a minimum of 5 years before we see a sequel. I think it'll be enough of a jump to essentially put in a new T'Challa.
Yes.
Now, maybe a bit more than 5 years potentially, and it could be and even maybe even into 10 years before we see Black Panther 3. I don't know. So I think if they go a little bit longer, it would be just to bring in a naturally older T'Challa,
Mm,
or they could use the timeline thing and have it be a shorter window. But I don't think we're going to see Shuri as Black Panther for long.
no,
I think she'll stay as Black Panther if they bring in a number three. I don't think they'll kill Shuri off, but I do
no,
think they
no.
will.
It's gonna have to be like she's passing the mantle to her nephew.
Yeah, yeah. Like, because you know, she's the scientist girl, and
Yeah.
you know, she's more like the
Yeah, M'Baku is going to
support.
be like in charge of Wakanda,
Yeah,
and Shuri is going to pass the Black Panther mantle to her nephew.
yeah. So I think a future T'Challa won't be the king. Like
Yeah,
initially, I think the next movie T'Challa won't be the king. I think he'll become Black Panther, but he'll very much have to look on to his elders and stuff like that. So I think
either
we'll
that or
see.
he'll challenge M'Baku and
Yeah,
take the
yeah.
crown.
Yeah, maybe not initially, but maybe, yeah. Or
Yeah,
yeah, you could see a bit of clashes between the two of them.
yeah,
So I think what's next for Shuri is probably to support her nephew
yeah.
and stuff like that. I think what's next for Namor, I think we'll see him in other movies. I think
Yes,
when Fantastic Four eventually does get a movie, I not necessarily the first one, but he will be in a Fantastic Four movie.
yeah.
We all know that he loves Sue Storm in the comics, so you know that's gonna happen. And
I mean, there was
yeah,
some chemistry between him and Shuri too. Like, I think maybe they could have had something if he hadn't killed her mother. Just gonna
I
throw
don't
that out
I,
there.
I I don't think it's gonna happen now though. He killed her
No,
mother,
no, not now.
so
But I did love that sequence where he takes her down to Talokan and shows her
mm,
like his underwater kingdom. Essentially, I thought that was really the just how civil they were with each other. I really loved that kind of dynamic. I love a dynamic where the villain and the hero can sit down and have a conversation, even though they both know that they fundamentally are not on the same page. So I hope we get at least a bit more of that diplomacy in the next film.
yeah. Okay, so what would you rate this movie?
5.
Yeah, 5 out of 5.
It's
So
got to be a 5. Also, one other thing, my other favorite scene was when Queen Ramonda strips Okoye of her general title and basically tells her, "You are no longer Dora. Like, get out of my sight. You lost my daughter, and now I have no idea if she's dead or alive, and now I have no husband, no son, and no daughter. Like, she was your responsibility, and you did not live up to my expectations." And I was shocked. Like, I was shocked that Okoye got stripped of her title. But also, like, by the end of the film, she is not reinstated. Like, she is still not a Dora anymore. And Ayo is in charge now. And I just was like, I didn't think that y'all would do that to my girl Okoye like that.
I can see why she did it though. So
Yeah, yeah. But I think that that's also a testament to Queen Ramonda and Angela Bassett playing that character. Like, she was just she was graceful. She was like diplomatic, but at the same time, she was iron fisted. Like, she ruled this country the way that a strong ruler should. And she was just like, I cannot accept your failure. Like, I have treated you like one of my own, but I cannot accept your failure. You failed to protect the royal family, and because of that, like, you got to go.
so I mean, I think it's a really respectful movie, emotional roller coaster,
Yeah.
not action packed, but strong enough action
Yeah.
scenes
But
throughout a very
it's so
emotional.
story heavy. It's such a
Yeah,
good story.
I think the story is well done. You don't feel like it's like, oh, I want to hurry up.
Right.
It's got really good pacing, and
Yeah.
I think the fact that we weren't having Black Panther pushed down our throats, like the fact
Yes.
that it's towards the end, I think they handled it really well. So yeah,
And you
five
have
out.
time to like get to know the characters. Like, it's
Yeah.
like you said, it's kind of like it's a sequel and an origin film at the same time.
Mm,
So the sequel part is us and Wakanda and Shuri and the morning, but it's also an origin story for Namor and his origins and his mourning. And I think they played off of that very well.
mm,
And like you said, they didn't rush anything. Like, we don't rush into battle. We don't rush into end sequences. Like, it's a natural build, and that's probably why this movie is as long as it is. It could have been shorter. I don't know where they would have cut anything, but like, maybe if it had been 20 minutes shorter, but like, it does really well to be both a sequel and an origin, like you said.
I think yeah, I'm happy with the time. But anyway, so one thing probably not happy about the time is we've gone quite long, so we'll bring this episode to a close.
Our double feature. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, a double feature. Yeah. So now, next episode, as we carry on our look at comic book related movies, we are going to go all the way back to 1996 and
Oh yeah.
review Billy Zane's The Phantom.
Oh, we're taking it way back.
So you can follow us on social media. We're Geeks Unleashed everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
And you can get this podcast wherever you get your podcast: Google, Podbean, Apple, Spotify. We are everywhere. So please leave us a 5-star review and tell your geeky friends.
Do you know what I just remembered? You haven't seen She-Hulk yet, have you?
No, I haven't.
There's a really annoying white guy in it who he said he basically gets some Wakanda thingy technology or something, and he goes like he's on a date with Jennifer Walters, and he goes like Wakanda forever, and I was like, oh, just white people that do that. Like there must be people out there that do that. Like
yeah, I'm sure.
I'm not going to do that, by the way.
No.
So I was like, the reason I said this is it went through my split second brain to how cool it'd be to end this episode saying that, and I was like, don't be stupid. I was like, don't be stupid. I was like, never gonna do that.
Thank you for catching yourself, Mark.
Yeah. Like, and then I just remembered that scene in She-Hulk, and I just thought to myself, I bet there's white people that do that and think it's cool. Like, so anyway, thanks for listening. Have a good week.
Yes.
So,
good journey.
Good journey, dude. So